должны принять то решение, о котором сегодня говорится.
Что значит, в противном случае вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
Russia already has the largest land area on Earth. It stretches across 11 time zones and covers 1/8 of the planet's surface. It has more oil, gas, and minerals than most nations combined. Yet somehow, it keeps wanting more. That is the question the world keeps asking. Why does a country that already has so much continue to fight for more land? To understand that, we have to look beyond the borders on the map and into the mind that controls them. The paradox of size. You would think a country so big would feel safe, but Russia never truly has. The more land it owns, the more insecure it seems to become. Its leaders have always believed that size brings safety, so they keep pushing their borders outward. But here lies the paradox. The more they expand, the more enemies they create, and the more they fear those enemies. Expansion becomes a habit, not a strategy. Russia keeps reaching for new land, not because it needs it, but because it cannot stop itself. And that habit goes deep into its history. A habit formed by history. Historical reflection. For centuries, Russian rulers have believed that to survive, they must control the lands around them. The Soviet Union followed the same pattern, calling it protection from the West. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, that habit did not vanish, it just changed form. The empire disappeared, but the mindset stayed alive. Vladimir Putin grew up in that world, watching his country lose territory, power, and pride. To him, the fall of the Soviet Union was not a political event. It was a personal wound. Putin's mission and the return of the empire. Putin once called the fall of the Soviet Union the greatest tragedy of the 20th century. That sentence explains almost everything about his decisions. He does not dream of a modern Russia filled with innovation and progress. He dreams of a powerful Russia that once again commands fear. In his mind, Ukraine, Georgia, and other nearby nations are not truly separate. They are lost pieces of the old empire that must be brought back, even if by force. Every move they make toward NATO or the European Union feels to him like betrayal. That is why Russia's aggression is not about new land, it is about old memories. Why more land does not mean more power. Russia already has more land than it can handle. Much of it is empty, frozen, or underdeveloped. Cities in Siberia are shrinking, and millions of young people are leaving for better lives abroad. The problem Russia faces is not space. Yet Putin focuses on territory because land is visible, and progress is not. Land can be shown on a map, but reform takes patience and humility. This is where the desire for control turns into something darker. Aggression without boundaries. Russian aggression does not begin with tanks. It begins with fear. Putin constantly talks about protecting Russian speakers, defending traditional values, and stopping Western influence. Each of these reasons becomes a doorway to another invasion. Once a leader convinces himself that he is defending his civilization, there are no limits. He can invade any neighbor, crush any opposition, and call it protection. That is why Russia's aggression seems endless, because it is driven by an idea that has no borders. And that idea leads us to the question everyone asks. Is Putin a fanatic? A fanatic is not someone who loves his country too much. It is someone who loves his own vision of it so much that he stops listening to reality. Putin believes Russia's destiny is to dominate, not to cooperate. He surrounds himself with voices that agree and silences the ones that do not. To him, history is not a memory, it is a mission. He wants to rebuild what was lost, even if his people must suffer for it. He sees himself as the guardian of Russian greatness, yet that greatness now exists only in his imagination. This is why his choices look less like strategy and more like obsession. The cost of that obsession. Every time Putin tries to expand, Russia becomes smaller in another way. It loses allies, it loses trade, it loses the trust of its own people. The economy weakens, the young leave, and the nation isolates itself. He wins land, but loses everything that makes a country truly strong. His wars create pride for a moment, but pain for generations. And that brings us to the truth behind all of this. The real enemy. The enemy Russia fears is not NATO or Ukraine. It is its own insecurity. The fear of losing power has made it blind to how power actually works. Real strength is not built by taking. It is built by earning. Putin fights to make Russia look mighty, but his aggression shows weakness. It reveals a leader who cannot stop fighting ghosts from the past. So why does Russia keep expanding when it already owns more land than it can manage? Because it is not chasing land. It is chasing an illusion of greatness that was lost long ago. And is Putin a fanatic? In many ways, yes. He is not driven by logic or necessity. He is driven by belief, pride, and fear. That mix is what makes his aggression endless and his victories empty. Russia does not need more land. It needs to find peace within its own borders, because no empire built on insecurity can ever stand strong forever. If you want to understand more about how power, pride, and fear shape the world, subscribe for more stories like this one. The more we understand leaders like Putin, the better we can see how unchecked ambition turns even the biggest nations into their own enemies.